Hi Andrew, welcome to week 6. How are you doing?
Is it week 6 or week 7? I can't remember, but yes, I'm good.
Definitely one of them. This is
Yes.
week 6, we think, with the grocery guru. That is Andrew Grant. Now he's looking like he's just stepped off of an M&M video.
God, I'm not sure how many people can remember that far back, but yeah, it's quite cold here. I think we're moving into the proper weather for the proper season.
We are. So this week, what are we talking about?
Well, I think, as I said, we're moving into Christmas season, despite the government possibly doing its best to stop us enjoying ourselves, whether that's right or wrong. Yeah, I think it's pantomime season. I think it's time to start rolling out he's over there, and oh, yes, he did.
Oh, no, he's not.
Oh, no, he's not. Have a look at maybe some of the villains, pantomime villains for the season.
All right, and pantomime season's coming up. May happen, may not, but I get your point. Who's our villain that you want to talk about?
Well, it's just something, because we're trying to keep these things topical. The British Brands Group, which encompasses some of the biggest UK brands, published a review this week of retailer compliance to GSCOP.
Oh, okay.
So
for those that don't know, is legal, is a piece of law governing UK supermarkets.
Yeah, and every year legally, each of the 13 designated supermarkets has to write a report to the adjudicator, the government official that runs GSCOP, telling her, now him, how they've done. And right. British brands have collated all that. And yeah, here we are. Let's have a guess. So the country's largest retailer is
Tesco.
How many complaints of all the many thousand suppliers they deal with, and the billions that they spend with suppliers each year? How many complaints do you think they had last year? Sorry, alleged complaints.
So these are breaches of GSCOP. And by the way you worded the question, I should say thousands, but I'm going to guess it's not.
Okay, well, they're alleged breaches, Darren.
Alleged breaches. All right, so I'm going to go with 250.
Okay, it was 45, which, there were some headlines in the business press, trade press over the week saying, Tesco are the villain, Tesco the GSCOP villain, with 45 alleged breaches amongst, I reckon that's less than 0.25% of their suppliers who have made an alleged breach. My view is that's pretty good.
Yeah, but you and I have talked about this before, and I've played along for the last couple of minutes, but here's where I don't play along. There are about 10,000 suppliers out there, and 45 complaints is bugger all. And that is not a measure of how well they're doing. It's just not.
Okay, why don't we then divide the 45 complaints into how many billions of pounds the supermarkets spend with suppliers, and it will come out, you'll run out of zeros after the point.
You will, but here's a stat for you. So I got this one from LinkedIn in preparation for our week 6. And it says, I shall read it to you. For every complaint, not GSCOP specific, but every complaint, there are 26 other unhappy customers. Now, I worked out that last 12 months, there have been 154 breaches, alleged breaches of GSCOP. And if I times that by 26, I arrive at about 4,000. And that is how many complaints I think are really out there. So GSCOP is not doing really well. What's happening is suppliers are frightened to report.
Yeah, I know that's, when the adjudicator does their annual supply review, which they do annually, the number one reason for not raising a breach is fear of reprisals.
Yeah, that's my challenge. Since GSCOP has come in 2010, so it's about a decade old, it's 10 years old, we've got 154 breaches or alleged breaches. But really, how many are there? There's got to be more.
I don't know. It's difficult. I'm sitting on the retailer side of the fence here. I don't think they are the pantomime villains.
Oh yes, yeah. Go on.
Very good, very good. I don't think they are the villains. You can look at the numbers and, lies, damn lies and statistics. We can spend all day, throwing numbers back at each other. either trying to make it look like a big problem or it not be a big problem. When you actually read the adjudicators' annual reviews, etc., Christine Tacon, who's now given up the role, always talks about just how compliant the retailers have been, and particularly she did a bit this week about what she thinks she's achieved in 7 years, so her sort of leaving memories. And the number one thing she pointed to was the code compliance officers, who are, for those people who aren't that au fait with the code, they are independent of the retailers' commercial divisions, that typically they're company secretary or company legal. She pointed to them as being the people who have made the code work within the retailers. And I think what I'd point to, Darren, whatever your numbers say, whether it's 45 alleged complaints for Tesco, and there's 26 times that not reported, I think I'd actually point to the retailers who are not covered by GSCOP. Because I probably get, I don't know, half a dozen calls a week from clients asking me about problems they've got with GSCOP. And how many of those 6 calls, so let's say I've had in the last 6 months 100 calls, how many of those have related to one of the 13 named retailers?
Oh, actually, I have no idea. 1 in 2?
No.
No?
Less than half a dozen. So 5-6%. The vast majority of the calls I get from our clients that are worried about the behavior of a customer are not those covered by the 13. I'd probably get into huge trouble if I named them. Okay. But some, the ones I get the most calls about are some of the big high street names that happen to sell groceries alongside their newspapers and books, and alongside their perfumes and face creams, etc. Those who I get the complaints are. I think the conclusion I'd come to is that the 13 retailers covered by the code do follow the code as much as they can. And those complaints, those alleged breaches we see, hey, stuff will happen when you're dealing with multi-billion-pound businesses and tens of thousands of suppliers. The odd thing will slip through. I think the bigger problem is outside. There's a lot of our clients who are struggling because of COVID, having big problems with important customers to them who are not covered by the code.
And I think the other part we shouldn't forget is, whilst the code is governing those 13 named retailers, we also know that suppliers have a duty in order to be able to help guide their relationship with those brands.
Yes.
And suppliers, we know that 1 in 2 don't really understand the code, and also 1 in 2, I'm using broad numbers, don't have a written supplier agreement, which is a problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we've said it before. When you get to smaller suppliers, the knowledge and, most importantly, the amount of training they've had in the code drops to less than half of them have had proper training in the code. And yeah, how are you going to know what you do if you've not had the training?
So we're talking this week about our Pantomime villain, which are the 13 retailers and the breaches that they have, not have.
Oh, no, they're not.
Oh, yes, they are. The people who aren't coming forward, or who are. Pantomime villain, 13 retailers. But you're saying the complaints are quite low. I'm saying that they're all hidden and they need to come forth.
I think the real villains are outside the 13.
Our 10 minutes are up. We ought to cut that bit. But Andrew, thank you very much. We'll see you for week 7.
Bye-bye.